England's first literature story about, wait, what am I trying to say? Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and it's time for September's reading wrap up, smash or pass edition. Very simply, I go through all the books that I read in the month of September and tell you whether I would smash or pass, and then give you a bit of a review of them as well. I have to say, September wasn't my best reading month. It's actually the least amount of books I've read in over a year, and also what I've been reading hasn't been anything amazing. Like, there's been nothing amazingly stand out of these books apart from like one that I've really loved and a reread. Other than that, it's just been a bit of a lackluster reading month. Now, I was away on holiday, which does contribute to why I read less, but I also think it's just my mood. Like, September for me is always an in-between month. I just want to get to reading all the spooky books in October, so I think maybe in future we should just start the spookier reads in September, because that's what I get in the mood for. Maybe we'll do that going forward. Anyway, let's start this video. I'm actually going to start with the DNFs. So DNF always passes because obviously I've DNF'd them. We have The Vampires by Konstantinos, and this is the Occult Truth. This is a self-published book, or at least I believe it's self-published book. We have an author that's trying to convince us that vampires are real. However, didn't finish this book, found the writing style really condescending, and I did go into this because I thought it would be just a fun time. I picked this up in an occult museum in Edinburgh, thought it would be a great addition to the shelves, and thought why not give it a try, because there were parts in this that were about the folklore of vampires, and that's what I was really interested in. However, that part is very short and does not go in depth into the folklore. It gives you like a brief overview of this is like stories from folklore across the world. Look at these correlations between them and how unusual that is for places that are just like in no contact with one another during this time, and all of this. I enjoyed that, but we didn't go in depth into any of the stories. It was a light look. We kept being told, oh, we're going to go in depth in later chapters. That never actually happened. We then started looking at vampires in literature, so Bram Stoker's Dracula, etc. And I enjoyed that bit, but again, it didn't go in depth to anything, and it just really wasn't working for me, and the writing style was irritating, and I'm like, the bits that I was actually here for, you haven't done in depth, and so I just can't bothered. The rest of this book was then going to be focusing on mortal blood drinkers in present day, so people that drink blood in today's society and the reasons why they do so, as well as like psychic vampires and things, which is like fine, but it's not really what I'm interested in, and considering that the writing style was irritating me so much, I just felt like there was no point in continuing on with this one. However, I will be keeping it for my shelves because I like the old feel to this, and it's just, I don't know, there's something about the book that I like in terms of like aesthetics, but it just didn't give me as much as what I wanted. That was a pass. The other DNF I had is for a video I did, which was the Locked Library video. I'll have it linked below, and this was the Library of Broken Worlds by Alea Dawn Johnson. So this is the Locked Library edition, very beautiful edition. This, however, was just really confusing for me. This is a YA sci-fi, and looking at reviews, does seem to be that people that read a lot of sci-fi could get on with this book a lot easier. I'm pretty new to the sci-fi genre, and this was just so confusing. It felt like a psychedelic dream. When I started seeing it like that, I found it a little bit easier to read. It was still so confusing, and I also think the way it was written doesn't help with that. I liked the concept of the way it was written. It's kind of done as inspiration from the, is it 1001 Nights, where we had the king that was killing off all these girls every night, who would take a new girl and they would die come morning, and then we had this person that started telling them stories, and so that's how she was able to stay alive, because she never finished any of the stories. And it feels a bit like that. We have our main character that's gone to this god of wrath and telling him stories, and the god's like, it's not going to save your life, and she's like, no, but it might prolong it. And so you have a segment of them talking, and then we have the story that she's telling. It's all with the idea that, well, we know this world because the god of wrath knows the world, so he doesn't need any context or descriptions or anything like that. As a reader, I know nothing about this world, and so I found that really confusing. It kind of stops, and then we go back to the god of wrath and their interactions, and then we have another short story, but it will show little snippets that it just didn't seem to marry up very well. There were big time jumps between each story and then not much context. You were literally just picked up and plopped at different points in a person's life, but with no contextual understanding of what's going on or how we got there. So it just didn't quite work for me. I would like to try it again because I think it was so unusual and so different, but probably not for a while until I've read some more sci-fi, so maybe I have a better chance of this book. But yeah, this ended up being a DNF. I also read 2 more books for that Locked Library vlog. These were not read in September. We had this one in July, which was All the Dead Lie Down by Kyrie Macaulay. This was a smash. I really enjoyed this one. It's a YA thriller horror. It's a bit gothic-y, a little bit creepy. We're following a main character whose mother has died, and so she gets an invitation from her mother's best friend to say, hey, do you want to come stay with us? You can look after the kids in exchange for like staying with us and everything. You know, just kind of work out what you want to do and sort yourself out from there. And so she goes, except she then finds out that these particular kids are hella creepy. So creepy. Weird things that they try and do. They have some very questionable pranks that they do. We have the best friend's mother is... Best friend's mother? That's not what I'm trying to say. The person that she stays with, the person that invited her over there, what was her name? Lovelace, Alice Lovelace. She is a horror writer, and Marion, our main character, loves her books, thinks they're absolutely amazing, but then as she's getting there, she's like, something is not quite right about this house, about the things that are going on, and as she starts learning more and more, it gets a little bit more creepier. I really liked this one. I thought it was a good fun time, and yes, I did read this in July, but I don't include it in those wrap-ups until I've finished the whole video because I don't want to give away spoilers for a video that's coming, you know? And then the other book I read for that, which was in August, is The Valkyrie by Katie Hartfield. This was fine. This is a Norse mythology retelling, and we've got it from 2 main perspectives. So we've got 2 women, and it's about Brynhild, who was a Valkyrie that got kind of cast aside by Odin. There was a lot of interesting things where we could have delved a bit deeper into, but we just kind of never really did. This isn't a book I would reread, to be quite honest. Like, it was fine, but I'm not really that interested in Norse mythology, in all honesty. I thought it'd be interesting because I've mainly only read Greek myth retellings. In general, I'm just burnt out on mythology, but also this one, because I don't know enough about the mythology, I didn't really understand what the point was, if that makes sense. Basically, there was this particular line where these 2 women exchanged this glance. She was like, what if there was more to it than that? And that's what this story is all about. And so I like the concept of this. There were some parts in this where I thought it was really interesting, but I feel like it could have been a little bit deeper. It felt very surface level, and so this is a pass. I would still recommend, especially if you do like mythology retellings, or if you're interested in Norse mythology, I think it would be a good one for it. But I think for me, the interest level wasn't quite there, and it didn't delve deep enough into certain topics that I think could have been explored, and it would have really amped up my enjoyment of this book. So yeah, that's a pass. Going into the other books that I've finished, we have The Vampire by John Paul Dorey. I have not read this whole book, and so I don't count it technically as a book read for the month. I read just the one short story, which was only like 23 pages long, so it wasn't much at all, but this was really good. I really enjoyed it. This is considered England's first literature story about... Wait, what am I trying to say? There we go. The story introduced the vampire into English fiction. That's the sentence I was trying to say. This I really liked. You can really see all of the hallmarks of the vampire, really, and how that has inspired our literature for years to come, especially things like Bram Stoker's Dracula. The depictions of the vampire have stayed with us in literature the way that John Paul Dorey did it in this. I found it really, really fascinating. The vampire in this is actually based on Lord Byron. It actually says that on the back, as well as a few people have told me in the comments, and I found that really fascinating and really funny to read. Overall, this book was just really gothic and haunting. It's not going to be a horror book by today's standards at all, but it is a gothic book, and it's just got that decadent writing style, and then the depictions of the vampire being this very charismatic, charming, seductive person, obviously with a very deadly end to it all. Really enjoyed it, thought it was really good, and I'm really pleased that I've read to see where all of our vampire lore, and well, not our lore, but like the way they're depicted in fiction and literature today, all kind of started from. Really good. Really enjoyed that, so that is a smash. A book that I can't decide whether it's a smash or pass is The Wolf Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid. I liked this one. I liked it for the atmosphere. I thought that was really well done. However, I did have pacing issues with this book. This kind of reminds me of like a Dark Grimm's fairy tale, but with lots of the fairy tales meshed into one. We have our main character, Yvick, and she is a wolf girl. She lives in this village in the forest, and I really like the depiction of the forest, the way that the trees move themselves and all of that. I thought that was really well done. And they live in fear of the woodsmen, who once every couple of years come along to the tribe to take a wolf girl, because all the wolf girls have special abilities. Some can heal, some can create fire, others can work with silver. There's all sorts. However, Yvick is the one wolf girl with no gift, and so when the woodsmen come along, she ends up going with them, even though technically she's not meant to, because they only want people with gifts. That then sets off this chain of events and things that we're uncovering. We see different darker fairy tale-esque creatures in the woods. However, I felt like that could have been explored a bit more. The time that you spent with these different creatures was not very long at all, and it just felt really fast paced, and I feel like that could have been slowed down and explored a bit more, and that would have been fascinating. This book does also look into religion itself. I think it's focusing on Christianity, looking at paganism, the way that people just see things as different, as wrong, rather than taking the time to understand things and realizing how similar everything is between the two, as well as looking at your identity yourself. If you come from two different factions, so Yvick herself comes from obviously the wolf tribe, but then her father comes from somewhere else, which I think is more Jewish inspired. Learning to come to terms with both sides of your heritage, even if they contradict one another, and just the way that people can be persecuted, or especially the way it was because of Christianity. Like, obviously with those are not the words that are used, but that's the correlation that I made, and also pretty sure Ava Reid made a TikTok about the fact that this was exploring her Jewish heritage as well. I found this really interesting. I think it was really well done in terms of like the different things it was exploring, but I do think the pacing was a little bit off, and also I wasn't in the mood for this book, which to be honest I should have like just put it down and been like, you know what, I'll come back to this at a later date because I'm not in the mood for this sort of darker fantasy fairy tale thing. However, I would say if you like The Witcher, then you might like this, because it reminded me of The Witcher, like in a loose way. The woodsman reminded me of Geralt. The woodsmen go around hunting down these monsters. They don't do it for money, they just do it to protect other people and for their faith and religion. Yvick reminded me of Yennefer in a way, and so I really liked that comparison. So I feel like this is going to be a lighter smash, because I can definitely see myself rereading this and enjoying it. It's just I wasn't in the mood for it at the time, and so as a result I noticed all the things that I could normally overlook in terms of like the pacing and things. Another one that I don't know where to put with this is Swan Fight by Kristin Olmesdottir. This has been translated by Vala Thords. This I read while I was in Iceland. It's a piece of Icelandic literature, and I really enjoyed the experience of reading this while I was in Iceland. It's a really weird, unusual book. We have our main character, and she is a spy. One day, out for a walk, she stumbles across these swanfolk. They are part human, part swan. She stumbles into their society and how unusual it all is and how brutal it can be. And I liked it. We do have the question right at the start of this book, is this a dream or was this real? Even our main character doesn't really know what's going on. Throughout this book it does question reality, the different realities that we have. Our main character herself is a very unusual person, imagining things. She's got a very vivid imagination. She's got an imaginary sister, she's got an imaginary dog, but she will talk about these things and think about these things as if they are real, and so it causes you to question it sometimes. And so it really does question what is going on. I enjoyed the first half of this book a lot more. I read it really quickly. However, the latter half of this book kind of steers away from the swanfolk and is more the interactions with her work colleague. I kind of had a theory for this book, which I still don't even know if it's an accurate theory to have had, but I don't want to say anything because of spoilers and stuff. Kristin takes time to also talk to you as a reader and question things that you shouldn't do when you're writing a book and how they did all the things that they shouldn't do. I need to put my tab key in. I forgot to do that. I did have 3 main four main tabs that I was using. So we had light blue for quotes that I really liked. These could be nature quotes or just quotes in general that I found really beautiful. We then have a lighter peachy colour, which is more looking at societal issues, and there were some quite in-depth conversations to be made, and I think you could definitely look deeper into this book than I did, probably would upon reread, about how the swan folk are comments on our society in general. We then have this darker blue, oh no, it was just a 3. Darker blue, which is about questioning reality and me questioning our main character Elizabeth and the things that she's viewing and whether I thought it was really real. So we have it where Elizabeth's questioning things herself, and then we also have things where I'm like, was that really right? Was that like a healthy mindset? What is going on with this as a character? So I did really enjoy it. It was just, it's weird and I don't know where to put it. For me, I think it's going to be a smash, and I'll reread this one because I can delve deeper into it and pull things out. However, it's also one that I know other people could read and be like, what are you talking about? This was just weird as hell. But I found it really interesting and it was a really easy read. Okay, another book that is an easy smash is The Mask of Mirrors, which is by M.A. Carrick. It's actually written by 2 authors, one of which is Alec Helms and the other is Marie Brennan. Marie Brennan is one of my favourite authors, absolutely love their books. This was a reread for me, which I've already said, but it was fantastic. I absolutely loved this. I want to carry on with this trilogy and finish it by the end of the year, which is why I did the reread. There's more going on with this. You're following lots of different perspectives, but the main essence of the story is we're following our main character who is a con artist, and she's decided that she's going to con her way into elite society so that she can start looking after her sister. They don't have to keep running on the drugs of society, like they're so fed up with it. And so that's what the essence of the story is. And part of this con, she ends up getting caught in lots of different things that are happening. We have a vigilante that's going on, we have tarot magic, nightmare magic that's going on, you've got the political things of the elite society paired with everything else that's going on. It is really well done. I really liked the Venetian style setting. I thought it was fantastic, but there is a lot going on, and that's why I needed the reread. There's so many little parts to this book. My sister was reading this one and she said she found it a little bit confusing, and I fully do understand that, but I don't know, I think it's worth it. I'm really looking forward to reading the second book, and I just love everything to do with this. The setting, the magic that's involved, the descriptions. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. So yeah, looking forward to continuing on with this. Another smash, we have volume 2 of Dead Man's Wonderland. I did technically finish this at the end of August, but didn't actually do it in the wrap up, hence why we're mentioning this now. The same with The Vampire, which is why technically the books that I've read in September is actually 4 less than everything you're seeing here, because we've got these 2 and then the 2 for the library vlog, which I didn't actually read in September. But yes, Dead Man Wonderland volume 2. This is a kind of body horror manga which I'm really enjoying. I think it's really good. I'm buddy reading this with my partner, so we've been reading the volumes together. It's really fun. It's really nice to discuss and talk about it with him. He loves manga, so this is a really nice way to do that. This one we're following a main character who was falsely imprisoned, and the prison that he's actually in is very deadly. It's got these deadly games that they do to create revenue for Japan, and our main character's trying to survive, basically. I really like it. There is a particular scene in here which was so squeamish and had me gross, and it's to do with eyes. Oh, that's a point. Swan Fight. Really gross scenes to do with teeth in here. What is it with that sort of thing? Like, ew. But at the same time, they're still smashes. There's something clearly wrong with me, but yeah, enjoyed these. They're a good time. Another one that's kind of in the middle, and I don't know whether it's a smash or a pass, I feel like it's a very tentative smash, is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I did enjoy this book. This was another book I took on holiday, although it took me longer to finish after the holiday. It's the start of a series, but it feels like a prequel, and I've been told many times by other people who have finished the series that go, yeah, this book isn't the best. It is a prequel. It sets everything up for the second book, and you can definitely see that. However, I feel like it was too long then for that. This is kind of set up as short stories, so each chapter is like a different short story. You have different characters, lots of different character perspectives, and every time you meet a new character you have a little snippet of what's happening at the minute, and then you have the main rest of the chapter is actually their backstory, and then it will go back to the present day and what's happening at the very end. And so apart from like the first and last paragraph of the chapter, it doesn't really move the story forward in any way. Instead, we're looking backwards at these characters. Well, yes, some of that was really interesting. Some of it I felt like we really didn't need. And so that's why I feel very in the middle about this book. The writing is gorgeous. I did tab beautiful writing. So that's purple quotes. Purple tabs are for quotes that I absolutely loved because the writing really was gorgeous. I feel like it was just too long for what it was trying to do, and the very ending of this book also felt too long. It felt like it was like 50 or 60 pages too long. Basically, I felt like we had a nice start up to the book. It was a really nice way of starting it up. The first 140 pages I liked, I found really interesting. I liked the writing style and everything. Then we had the middle section, which I felt was very long, very drawn out. We have the Empire, or the Emperor who's died, and then we have all these people that are rising up, pull apart what was the Emperor's regime, which was the Emperor went around uniting all these different islands together under one banner, but doing it in a really ruthless and brutal way, which is one of the tabs that I used. Light blue was for things like colonization, basically. And so we have all these people, rebels, that are rising up against this to then give independence back. But then something happens, and then the rebels start fighting amongst one another. And then there was this section towards the end of the book which I loved. I found it really interesting. There was lots going on. The ending kind of happened, but then it felt like it was dragged out for the next 60 pages. So I don't know, I'm very up and down about this. Like, I loved the writing style. Parts of this book I really enjoyed. Elements of the book, like the setting, I really enjoyed. Connections with the gods and goddesses, which felt like I was reading the Iliad in a way, because we saw how the gods and goddesses were so petty, because you do actually get their perspective in this book. And then some of the other connections that I was making while I was reading this, I did really enjoy, but it also felt so repetitive and so drawn out. Going back to the tabs though, so yeah, so light blue is for colonization, and then dark blue is for belief and faith and the things that that makes you do, because that's a massive part of this book. I do want to continue on with this series because I have been told that the second book is where it really takes off, but this first book, I just feel like it was a bit too long. I'll still do Smash because I enjoyed it because of the writing, so it's not like a proper smash, oh my god I loved this. It's more of a like a peck on the lips, it was nice. And I feel like that's what the vast majority of these books have been for September. I've got one more book to talk about, and then we'll just do a brief overview. So the last book to talk about is The Pillars of the Earth. Pretty much done. I've got the last little section to read. This has been absolutely amazing. I have enjoyed this book so much. This is a massive tome. It's over 1,000 pages long, but it's so well done. We're looking at a cathedral. The different things that have gone wrong with it all. So we have a few different main perspectives. I really like the way it was written. This is done over a very long period of time as well. And there are some characters that you absolutely detest. They are vile, horrible people, and it's horrible to be in their head, but I think that's a mark of a really good writer, that can really get those visceral reactions going to the characters. And then you have some characters that are your absolute favourites and you just want all the good in the world, but you know it's never going to be that easy. Basically, this is a book about this cathedral in Knightsbridge that is wanting to be built, and you see from before that even starts being built, we see the different characters that we're introduced to. So we've got our prior, we've got our builders, and we start seeing how they even came into contact with one another and how this cathedral was even started to have been built. Alongside that, you see the religious aspect of this, but you also see the politics that are involved with that. The way that you read the Bible and the way you interpret it can mean so many different things to different people, and so like any book, different interpretations, and the way that you interpret it can influence the things that happen. It's really not that straightforward when it comes to things like religion. People can abuse it but then justify what they're doing through their interpretation, and so that's a theme that gets explored in here. You also have the monarchy. An unstable monarchy can set the country into turmoil, dealing with all of that. There's so much going on in this book, and I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, but it is so well written. It also feels really gothic in places. The descriptions of buildings are beautiful. Like, I loved it. The architecture in this is amazing. Learning about the architecture and getting to know our characters and stuff, like, it is so well done. So this is an immediate smash. I loved this book. I had actually put this book off for such a long time. I was recommended this book and I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a try if I ever find it in a charity shop. Then I saw the size of it and I was like, oh my god, are we serious? And so it just sat on my shelves for ages, and then eventually I had someone in the Discord channel go, hey, I really want to read this. Do you want to buddy read it together? And I was like, okay, that's the only good thing that's going to make me read this book, and we have both loved this. It has been so amazing. It's been fantastic. There have been so many notes where it's so happy and joyful, and then other notes where you're just enraged at what's happened. It is so good. I know lots of you have said how you really want to read it but you're intimidated and stuff. I'd say just give it a try. The writing style is so good. My only thing with this is I wish I'd kind of read it a little bit quicker in a way. Last week or so I have not been feeling in the mood for any of these books because I want to read all the spooky books that I've set aside for October, and I feel like that's detracted a little bit from the ending of this for me, but that's just a mood thing. That's nothing to do with the book itself. This is so good. As I was saying, like, the month of September has been a really unusual month because I did read half of this and I had my reread, and both of these have been immediate smashes. Absolutely loved them. But then the other books that I've read in September are these three, and they've just been okay. Like, it's not been anything where I've thought, oh yeah, this is absolutely amazing. Like, these are fine. And then of course I've had the 2 DNFs for this month as well. So I haven't actually read a lot and it's been a bit up and down. So yeah, I don't know what to say about this month, but I think, like I say, going forward, that's more to do with my mood and wanting to read more of the spooky things the further it got into September, because it started off really strong with the reread. Absolutely loved it. And then as it's got closer to October, the more I just want to read this murder mysteries, the spooky books, the vampire books, all of this, and so it hasn't quite worked towards the end of the month, which I think you can definitely tell. Anyway, I've been talking for long enough. I'm going to stop now, so let me know if you've read any of these books and what you think of them. What was your favourite book of September, or the usual thing? Right now I've got pins and needles in my leg because I've been sat weird for this whole time, so I'm gonna go. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment. I've forgotten emoji. I'm sitting here going, what have I forgotten? I forgot an emoji. What emoji should we do? Oh, let's do a wolf emoji if you've made it this far. So if you've made it this far, put a wolf emoji in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. My social media links, anyone I've mentioned, will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.